Hello, I'm Lucy Craddock. I'm a final year data science degree apprentice and I work with Airbus. I study Bachelor of Science in Digital and Technology Solutions with the University of Exeter, and I'm here to talk about applying for a degree apprenticeship in tech. First is why should you consider a degree apprenticeship? I'm just going to throw out this statistic, which was found by the Higher Education Statistics Agency for UK computer science graduates, and they found that they had the highest unemployment group, and this is for the academic year of 2017-2018. So this is before COVID. Which when I saw this, when I saw very similar studies and when I was applying for university, I kind of had this question, if there's such a tech skills gap in the UK, why are so many computer science graduates going unemployed? And from my research, I found that this paper kind of gave me the most concrete answer, and it looks into computer science graduate employability by interviewing graduates after they finish their degree, maybe like 4 years after they finish their degree, and the reasons why they felt like they struggled to find work. So this paper kind of covers so I suggest that anyone, even if you're considering university, I really strongly suggest reading this paper because it kind of covers mistakes that graduates made during their degree, but it also covers like reasons for their struggles with employability, which is an outdated curriculum. So I can speak from my own experience from this. So in my second year of my degree, I was excited to learn OOP with Java until I learned that it was JSP, which I didn't realize is so outdated unless from which I wouldn't realize is so outdated until speaking to my colleagues at work. And I also considered doing a master's after I finished my degree last year until I read the curriculum for a data science master's and realized it was what I taught myself in the first year of my apprenticeship. So yeah, that's my experience to kind of back up that finding. Um, Also, they found that degrees were either too broad in computer science and the fact that they didn't dive deep enough into a specific role, technology to be employable in the workplace, or their degree was too specific, where their curriculum being outdated. Maybe they'd finish their degree, realize that the skill is no longer needed, and then relearn everything that they needed to do. Or they lacked like transferable skills for the rest of the computer science that's needed in tech. Graduates also expressed a naivete for the work climate. They said that they expressed that they were sold this idea that, with such a high demand for tech skills, the transition from university to the workplace would be smooth. And so they missed out on a lot of research that they needed to prepare themselves for the workplace, and felt like they made a lot of mistakes when deciding the degree or the university that they went to, because they didn't really consider the industry that they were applying for. They also expressed a lack of career guidance, lack of soft skills in their degree that would make them employable, such as business acumen or understanding how projects are undertaken in the workplace. And they also expressed that work experience was the most crucial part when applying for work after they graduate. And then and for some graduates who realized that who hadn't done an internship or a sandwich year, they really struggled to find work after graduating. So how do apprenticeships work? So I hope that's like piked enough interest in degree apprenticeships and their need in tech. So how do they work? So you work full time for your company and you study part time for your degree. So you study like 20%. So 20% of your company time is on your degree, and then you study outside of your company, outside of your work week on your degree as well. And your digital apprenticeship can last 3 to 4 years depending on the course, and you're treated like a normal employee except they're paying for your degree. So a little bit about my apprenticeship. So I work in Airbus's Central Research and Technology Department, which means that I produce research 20 to 30 years down the line that would be introduced into Airbus's generation cycle. Um, and I also research state-of-the-art technologies in AI and how to apply these to the aerospace industry. So my day-to-day work is writing code, processing data, cleaning data, understanding the domain to analyze that data, which means working with different departments and teams to build AI models that best suit their needs, and then delivering the research and insights that we get through research papers, business reports, and presentations. And that's been my job since I was 18 years old for the last 3 years, and that's all thanks to my apprenticeship. So, other perks of a degree apprenticeship, other than like amazing work opportunities, is that your degree is paid for, which means no debt, no tuition loans, no maintenance loans. You also get paid a salary like any other employee, and you get company benefits like holiday, travel, retirement plans, pension, shares, that kind of thing. You get career advice and support from experts in the field. Some apprenticeships will guarantee employment. They'll contract you made to work 2 years after you finish your apprenticeship, which also means that you don't have to do a graduate scheme after you finish. And you also get full-time work experience for 3 to 4 years. So that's a kind of an overview of degree apprenticeships. And, since the kind of knowledge about degree apprenticeships is more widely known, it's getting more competitive. So before we can go any further about applying for a degree apprenticeship, I must express that it's really, really hard. And not only is it hard on the apprentice, but it's also hard on the company, because from a company perspective, you're hiring an 18-year-old or school leaver typically. Um, and these are very competitive. So you might have 1,000 to 4,000 applicants from maybe 1 to 10 jobs, and by the second or third round, they all have the same grades, and they're all like school leavers, which means that they don't have any relevant work experience, any relevant skills that actually shows you that they're a good employee. So how do you choose? How do you make the decision of who to hire for the next 4 to 6 years and pay for their degree based on nothing? Is that you make them go through a very lengthy application process, which I'll go through. So applying for a degree apprenticeship can take 3 to 6 months long. Some applications will be open in October to April, ready for you to start in September. Some apprenticeships might start a bit earlier, maybe like onboarding process for a month before you start your degree. But typically, this is when the apprenticeships open. And obviously, the earlier the application starts, the longer you can expect the process to be. So as I said, they're very competitive with multiple rounds, where each round they'll like cut out people and trim down to like the last maybe 10 people, which means that you have multiple rounds of math and English quizzes, personality tests, questionnaires about why you want an apprenticeship, what you know about the company, any skills that you have, a phone interview, assessment center, video interviews, etc. So this is the example that I went through when applying for a bank, for a tech degree with a bank. This is actually the document that they gave me. But don't worry, I rewrote it. So I first applied through Get My First Job, which is a great portal for applying for apprenticeships, because instead of creating like a new login for each company, you can just create a profile on this website and apply for different companies through that. And so I applied to this bank and I submitted a formal application, which is a very lengthy questionnaire about basically reiterating my CV, why I wanted the apprenticeship, what I knew about the company, why I want to work for the bank, why I want to work for this particular bank, kind of just expressing like a very lengthy questionnaire. And then I had a telephone interview, and then I had to submit a video after I passed, about why I want the apprenticeship, again, just like reiterating everything I put in that application. And then I was invited to a development center where we were put into teams. And you would have to do this like business plan and a team, and then you were pulled off for an interview one by one. And then they would offer do the formal offer in March. So this application is about 4 months long, but in reality it was about 5 to 6 because there was like several delays throughout. which meant that this one application for one job for one bank took me about 5 months to complete, and then I like got rejected at the very end. So it's a very lengthy process, and I did this over and over again. I actually applied to maybe 15, 20 IT apprenticeships. And this is because I really struggled to find like a working link to actually apply for an apprenticeship. No matter how hard applying for an apprenticeship was, finding a working application link was actually the hardest and the most frustrating part. So anytime that I found a working one, I actually applied, and I applied for maybe 15 to 20, and I usually got to the second to the first last round of the application, where I got rejected on the interview or assessment center. So looking back at myself when I was 18 years old, I think this is because most of the companies that I was applying for, I was being interviewed by HR managers or early careers, and I felt like the questions were very vague, and from retrospect, I realized that I answered the questions like too literally. So they asked me like what my strongest skills were, like any evidence of teamwork. And I didn't think to like respond specifically to the job role. Um, and I also felt like these assessment centers were a very difficult situation for me to be in, especially being undiagnosed autistic at 18 years old. Um, and I think the reason why I actually passed for Airbus was because I was being interviewed by actual computer programmers who could ask me literal questions about my code, and I could show my passion and projects solving through answering very specific questions about my project. Um, so, since this is a Women in Tech conference, I wanted to share and like beg anyone that is designing these application processes to really consider neurodivergent people, neurodivergent women, because autistic women are more likely to go undiagnosed later. So, and I think a very particular case that I went through, I think the worst experience I had when applying for apprenticeship, I was applying for this other bank where I did like a very speed dating version of interview style, where every 5 minutes we had to talk to the next person, sell ourselves within 5 minutes, and introduce ourselves and sell ourselves within 5 minutes. And we did this about 10 times within an hour. And I was doing this in heels, which is not a good idea because it was all standing, and it was a giant hall of about 100 people all talking at once. And being autistic, it was a very unfamiliar like situation to be in, and I literally could not process what I was being questioned because the hall was so loud and overstimulating. I think when I finished that session, like I like wanted to crawl into a ball and like not look at anything for like 2 hours because I was so overstimulated. And that's where I failed because I literally just because I didn't have like the right body language that they would expect from a neurotypical person. Um, so, since this is a woman in tech, I just want to strongly express to anyone that is designing these application processes to keep in mind that autistic women, neurodivergent women, are more likely to go undiagnosed, um, and they're more likely to be diagnosed later in life if they're diagnosed at all. And when you build these like application processes, you are hiring 18-year-olds, very young people, which means that young women who are like autistic and misdiagnosed or they're undiagnosed, they don't have the opportunity to talk about their requirements or understand what they need from their application process to be treated more equally because these hiring practices are built for able people. And I am like the one of 16% of autistic adults in the UK that is in full-time employment. And I really think this is down to luck of Airbus's hiring policy that allowed me to talk more specifically about my experiences and share my passion for technology in a way that best suited me. And it makes me really sad to think about it really hurts to think about like the women who are like me who are maybe still undiagnosed with autism, who struggle with these abled these hiring practices built for able people who lose the opportunity that I had to do an apprenticeship, because it's just such a I think it's a really important subject to talk about because you're hiring young people who might not have the opportunity to be diagnosed, especially since it's a very lengthy diagnosis process. And so I just encourage people to keep this in mind when they're hiring young people, especially young women. Um, so my advice is, so I'd suggest that you apply to as many apprenticeships as you can. Being autistic, I don't really know what to do if I'm doing something for the first time, and so I like to do it over and over again. This is actually my third time recording this video. And so when I applied to as many apprenticeships, I realized that applying for a job is a skill that you can only gain from doing it multiple so I realized that applying to like so many apprenticeships is that applying for a job is a skill that you can only gain from experience and doing over and over again. So even if you don't particularly like the location that apprenticeship is set in, or you don't like that company, I suggest that you apply because you're getting free experience in something that you've never done before, so that you can do better and better for the one that you actually want. And as you apply to as you apply to these over and over again, you'll realize that a lot of the apprenticeship applications are very repetitive. It's particularly the formal application or the questionnaires. The questions can be very similar across the board. So I suggest that you save your work, and this will save a lot of your time and effort in the long run. And I suggest that you have something more to show than your grades, because in the final round, you can expect that all of them have the same grades, and you all look the same as like an 18-year-old who's just from school, basically, who has to go to school and doesn't have really much opportunity to do anything else. So I suggest that you do like a course in your own time, or you do like some work experience. You do a project in coding, something that you really like, and you can show that your passion and your commitment to the role outside of school, because you do need to have something to talk about in that final interview other than your grades. I also suggest that you be picky. So not all apprenticeships are made the same. There is a big difference between working for a small versus a big company. So for a big company, you can expect more resources, more time from your colleagues to support you. But you'll probably have less opportunity to build roles and responsibilities. You have less visibility of the company as a whole. Whereas for a small company, you'd probably be pulled into like work. So for a small company, they'd probably have less resources to like train you and support you, but it means that you have more of an impact earlier on in your apprenticeship, and you'll see more of the company overall. Um, there's also a difference between focused apprenticeships and rotation. I do a focused apprenticeship, which means that the team that I started with in my first year, I've been with the entire apprenticeship, whereas a lot of apprenticeships are rotated. So that means that every 3 to 6 months, you rotate between a different department, a different team, which means that you get to see more of the company, and you get to see more of the company and different job roles, and kind of learn more about what you really want to do as your final job. But I would argue that you're getting more exposure than experience because you can't really do that much in 6 months. And also, the final thing is to be resilient. I think I've really hammered down how hard it is to apply for a degree apprenticeship, and it is really hard because you will get rejected. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. You will get rejected, and it will be, when you apply for a university, they look at your grades and they look at marks. But when you're applying for a job, when you're applying for an apprenticeship, they're looking at you, and so you're personally getting rejected, and that can be really hard to go through when you're 18 years old. But I really argue that, the best, you're looking for an apprenticeship that suits you, not just for a job. Applying for a degree apprenticeship was the hardest thing that I ever did. But when I finish in July, I'll have 4 years experience in data science in a research center. I'll have 4 years experience in data science in the research department at 22 years old, which is completely unheard of. And, applying for the degree apprenticeships was the hardest thing that I ever did. but it was the best decision that I ever made. Um, but it was the best decision that I ever made. So that's to kind of end my talk. If you have any like questions, you can find me on Twitter. Any Gen Zs out there, you can find me on TikTok. And yeah, the credits go to the people that made the slides. Um, and that's the end of my talk. Thank you.